Capitol Hill, has sparked much controversy. Trump, who has also been suspended indefinitely from other platforms such as Facebook, Snapchat or Twitch, first himself protested against this decision via his presidential account at POTUS. By publishing a series of tweets denouncing a suppression of freedom of expression which would be exercised for the benefit of the Democrats and the radical left, a series of tweets quickly withdrawn from the platform. The latter justifies its decision by a desire to prevent the risk of new incitement to violence after the President of the United States encouraged his supporters to march on Capitol Hill. Since then, speeches have been opposed. Some denounce a slippery slope toward censorship and a questionable sense of timing, while others welcome the simple application of the platform's regulations and its property rights. The primary objective of the maneuver being to reduce the scope of hate speech and incitement to violence. The question that can first be asked is, does it actually work? Reduce violence on networks. Donald Trump is far from the first user deemed too rowdy by a social network to be released from a platform despite, or precisely because of, his large audience, more than 88 million subscribers in the occurrence. On the other hand, he is the first president. By removing his access, the platforms decide to no longer be complicit in the dissemination of false news and incitement to violence that he has long practiced. While the bans he is subject to will not end his speeches or his ideology, the President of the United States has many other channels of expression, especially in the press. What effect this type of downgrading can it have on its influence? If the Streisand effect, a phenomenon where the desire to censor something or someone only gives it more visibility, by arousing the interest specific to divisive subjects, is very real, it is running out of steam on the long time. Several researchers who have studied the effects of deplatforming, the fact of depriving someone of the platforms offered by social networks, believe that in terms of overall reduction of hate speech, the method works. When a relatively famous person loses a platform like Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, there is an initial flashpoint, where part of their audience moves with them, but in general the fall is quite large and they does not obtain the same amplification power as that which it had before being withdrawn from these large platforms. Explained Joan Donovan, researcher at Harvard and head of Data and Society, commenting to Vice on the deplatforming of Alex Jones, a far-right radio host in support of Donald Trump who had aroused his share of indignation a few years ago. In 2017, a group of Georgia Tech researchers published a study that found that banning Reddit's most violent forums, subreddits, had reduced hate speech across the site, including from the most violent users, more active in the offending subreddits. But Milo Yiannopoulos, an American alt-right figure, was permanently banned from Twitter for having carried out targeted harassment campaigns, and had to resign from Breitbart News for having defended pedophilia. His place in public discourse was greatly reduced. I think anecdotes are what make the difference here, comments Angelo Carasone, president of Media Matters, which monitors conservative media and studies deplatforming. If you add up each individual case, you get a net effect. You don't need a lot of encrypted data to see that from the moment Milo lost Twitter, he lost tremendously. He has lost his ability to be influential, or at least to project a veneer of influence. Fighting against the normalization of hate speech. Insofar as a large part of the population uses social networks on a daily basis, and finds their only source of information there, the issue is the level of habit. After his disappearance from Twitter, Facebook and company, and the fallout from the peak of attention due to the violent assault on Capitol Hill, will Donald Trump's speech remain a daily habit for the citizens of the United States? The main goal of these people is to make mainstream communities more and more aligned with their beliefs, says Robin Kaplan, PhD student at Rutgers University and affiliate of Data and Society. Denying people conveying incitement to violence or hatred access to traditional social networks naturally has the effect of preserving public discourse from a progressive runaway, by fighting against the normalization of this type of discourse. But the moment we put these people back in the hole they were in before, they can strengthen their beliefs and become more extreme, Kaplan warns. The balance is then made between a large number of ordinary users exposed to hateful content, often racist and authoritarian in nature, and a much smaller group of proactive activists who have migrated to niche platforms and who can be radicalized further. Conservatives, eternal victims of censorship. One of the fairly widespread myths, moreover, and fueled by political figures such as elected Republican Ted Cruz and Jim Jordan, or Donald Trump and his supporters, is that the account suspensions or access restrictions practiced by the giants of Silicon Valley would only concern the conservatives, who would be the first victims of a targeted censorship. However, as Kaplan points out, deplatforming is much more effective when the people who are the object of it have no power, a fortiori no electoral base, to begin with. Trans rights activists, Black Lives Matter organizers, LGBT people have also been demonetized or downgraded from these platforms. The reason we are talking about the extreme right is because they are covered by Fox News and have representatives in Congress holding hearings. They already have political power. Their ability to cry out for censorship is thus proportional to the visibility and the echo they retain. If Donald Trump therefore loses a nuisance power on social networks, he is, for the moment, still strong political intermediaries. On the other hand, the impossibility in which it is now found to relay conspiracy theories and calls for violence is likely, in the long term, to appease social networks, or at least not to excite them more.